Thank you all for showing up. Super appreciate it. This is our second in-person meetup since the before times. It feels a little weird, but I'm glad that everybody's here. I've missed you all. Thank you to our sponsors. Oh, sorry. Cool. All right, quick shout out to our sponsors. Thank you, WWT, for giving us the money that allows us to stay in places like this and order food and have fresh, refreshing beverages over there. And to AWS, of course, as always. Everybody, this is Trevor.
Hi, everybody, I'm Trevor.
We are not related in any way whatsoever. I just wanted to point that out first before anybody asks. So Trevor is going to talk about AWS certifications. A lot of us, some of us in the room, I don't want to speak for everybody, have taken a lot of the certifications. So if you have any questions, this is the place to do it. This is the time to do it. If you're going for your cloud practitioner, if you're going for an associate, if you're going for a pro, if you're going for a specialty, we have the brain power in the room that can help you find the right resources and stuff. So, Trevor?
Chris?
My brother from another mother?
We got to get the triplet up here actually at the end just to round it all out. You know?
We should do a group photo. Absolutely. All right, and now it's time to learn.
Awesome.
Cool.
Thanks, Chris, and again, thanks everybody for coming in person. This is pretty rad. I've done a lot of webinars over the last couple of years. And I've gone to some conferences, but this is the first speaking to physical humans in a small / virtual group. So. Thanks for coming. I'll give you a little of my background here and why maybe I know a couple things on this particular topic. But Chris reached out, asked if I wanted to speak, and this is immediately the topic that came to mind for me. I spend a lot of my time outside of my day job, working with folks that are either trying to break into technology or just grow their careers in tech. And so this is a topic I'm pretty excited to talk to you all about, because I think certs have helped me in my career a lot, and I see how they can help somebody kind of make that progress. Before I get into the content that I put together, which by the way, it's pretty simple. Why certs are great, even if Reddit disagrees sometimes. I want to give you all just.
You're wrong people on Reddit.
I know. People on Reddit back when I started in tech was more than 10 years ago. I was I want to get my CCNA, and everybody on Reddit's no, you can't get your CCNA. You need to get experience first. I'm okay, well, I don't have a job, so I can't really get experience. I want to get my CCNA. It very quickly turns into this chicken and the egg situation, And so anyway, we'll talk about why you shouldn't listen to those people on Reddit a little bit. Crash course on AWS certs, what's there now, and who each cert is kind of made for, where you might want to start if you're new to it. I just left Amazon a few months ago, but I was an SA at Amazon for a while, and I'll just share the resources that the people at AWS use whenever they're getting certified. And then I'll just share some tips that have helped me and some of my friends as we're trying to turn a certification into an opportunity. Before I get into the content though, it sounds like we have a mixed crowd. Could I see a hand if you have an AWS certification right now? So we get a small handful. What about if you are considering getting an AWS certification? Okay, perfect. This is great. We got a nice mix.
Where do we raise our hand if I was expired and it never went back?
If your cert is expired and you never went back, I guess is anybody else other than Chris? And I'm okay, cool. So this is actually it's a nice split of all three. So maybe this will be useful for all of you to figure out where to re-engage if you want to get that cert, or where to start if you're just getting started. So, real quick background on myself. I've been in the business for 10 years. I make content on social media and YouTube and stuff. I don't really have any thing to sell to anybody. I just like helping folks with their career. I don't make courses. I just help people connect with the right resources for them and build a path for where they're going. I spent the last year of my career at AWS focused on working with enterprise customers, adopting cloud technologies, migrating to the cloud. It was a lot of fun. AWS is a really cool place to work. And now I'm running a solutions architecture team at a startup that is selling into like developer relations and community organizations. So so you might find me, like if you like to hike in the Whites, you might find me up on a mountaintop every now and then. That's where I spend my weekends. And like I said, this is just a passion of mine. So whenever I talk, it's like back to those folks on Reddit who might tell you that you're not experienced enough to get certified. I feel like there's this like constant like thrashing and debate of like certs versus hands-on projects within this space. And if you start to like peel back the onion of like on the internet of like where you should get started, like you'll find people with drastically different opinions, like hard opinions in either direction of like you shouldn't get certified, you should launch this CloudFormation template and then figure out how that works, or vice versa. And so I just think like certs and experience, they're like peanut butter and chocolate, if you will. They go really well together. Like where you start, I think has a lot to do with where you're at today. Like if you don't have an opportunity to like jump in and get hands-on, or maybe you don't even have a role where getting hands-on is very useful for you. Maybe you just want to understand theoretically how things work. Certifications, I think, have a good fit into like, or regardless of where you're at in that journey. So, are certs worth it? All right. Before I get into walking you through Amazon certs, like this is a question people ask me a lot. I think if you crunch the numbers, like for dollars you invest, certs are almost always worth it. So I don't think the question is it worth the money? Is it worth the time that you're going to invest? Because like sitting down and saying I want to do a cert, you're generally committing to like taking time away from your family, from the things that you enjoy doing in your personal life. There's like statistics out there, certainly if you want to work for like an AWS partner or like a customer of AWS, getting Amazon certified, it's all over their job descriptions, generally speaking. So there's value from a job placement perspective there. But I'll just, like me personally, I've had this really interesting journey with certifications where I tend to like get certified to learn something new, whether it's networking. I got a VMware certification and had a similar journey with it. Same with my cloud certification story. It's like I get certified and then it's not like a door immediately opens. It's like you get the certification and then you kind of incubate with it for a while, and then you find like an opportunity as it crosses your path. So anyway, what I'm really trying to say here is like there's no guarantee of ROI on a certification, right? But it's like, what is the phrase folks say? Like luck is like some combination of opportunity and preparedness, or when timing meets preparedness, right? So I think getting certified in advance of an opportunity can pay off. And I think my general guidance is get certified unless you have something better to learn, right? Like some folks, I think I was talking to somebody who said they do a lot of like PHP and Python development. It's like if that's your bread and butter is like as a developer, and you can get hands-on and you can dive into a programming language, like start there. But if you don't have a specific outcome or like a specific thing that you want to learn and you're looking for a general path, I think that's where certifications add a lot to the equation of like, I know I want to learn AWS, but I'm not sure where to start. And that's really what I think certifications unlock for folks. Or I'm currently a tech worker and I want to cloudify my skills, right? I think those are where certs start to play a role. So let's talk about specific AWS certs. Let's talk about the cert where most people get their start. It's the first certification I got for AWS, which is the Cloud Practitioner certification, foundational certification. This one is like meant to be for folks that just want to start their cloud journey, right? We might call them little cloud babies. You have to crawl before you can walk, before you can run. There's nothing wrong with being a cloud baby. Everybody in this room was a cloud baby at some point, or maybe you're just a infant in the womb still trying to emerge as a little cloud toddler. But in either case, this cert is like generally where people start. It's really great for folks. We were talking to somebody before the session who's like a project manager and like wants to kind of modernize and understand some of the basics of AWS. That's really who this is made for, like folks that are maybe in sales or project management or like in a leadership role who don't necessarily ever want to get hands-on with AWS, or the cloud, but do want to like understand the fundamentals to help in like a team environment or in a corporate environment, right? So this certification is, I'll peel back some of the resources that folks can use to pass this cert soon, but I've heard this referred to as like a cloud vocabulary test, and I think that that's actually pretty accurate. It's like you have 60 questions, 65 questions spread across like 20 or more AWS services. So really, for this certification, what you need to know is like, what is an S3 bucket? Like, and how is that different than an EBS volume or maybe like a EFS storage? Like just understanding the very basics of like this service name maps to storage, EC2 maps to compute. Like it's a very like I guess surface level technical knowledge, maybe like a 50 or 100 level technical knowledge across the certification, across the services that are in the scope for the cert. And it's where I think most folks should start unless, and there are two situations where I wouldn't recommend folks start with this cert. Situation one is you're already working in tech. If you're already working in tech, you should probably skip this certification into the ones I'm going to talk about on the next slide. And what was the other situation where you should get this cert? If you're already in tech, and actually that's pretty much it. If you already have tech knowledge, you should start with this cert. I thought I had another one, but I lost it. And if you, actually I'm sorry, I got it back. If you're already in tech, skip the cert. If you I lost it again, everybody. All right, that was a triple fail. We're gonna have to move past it. Maybe I'll remember what I was gonna say in a second. Oh, here's what it is. I'm sorry. I really got it this time. I'm not gonna lose it. So if you want to be an engineer, right? If your goal is to get like hands-on in cloud technologies, like this is an awesome cert to consider starting with. But if you know that you want to get hands-on with the tech and you want to be like an engineer or an architect, I suggest folks skip this and go straight to certs that are going to teach you like more practical hands-on skills and help you start to like get familiar with the AWS console or actually like understanding how to fit different services together. So I'm going to walk you through what I would call like more of the like associate and foundational level certs and some of the professional and then specialty certifications through this presentation. I'm going to walk you through the ones that I've achieved are the ones on the left-hand side of here, and then I've achieved a couple of the specialty certifications. I think like the way I have them broken down here is pretty consistent with what I suggest folks pursue, right? If you want to get your feet wet in AWS and you just want to understand the basics of how to like implement a technology or how to like interact with AWS services, the associate level cert is where most folks should start. Professional level certs tend to have more technical depth and a lot of reading. In fact, if you like read online of folks talking about the different certs, like this cert itself is like a test of, or these professional level certs are a test of your technical knowledge, but also of your ability to like process information very quickly, because the exam questions tend to be very, very long and very detailed. Where on the right hand side of the screen here, the specialty certs, I think these are great for folks that either want to, like for me, like my entry into cloud was, I was a network engineer, and to me learning cloud seemed actually really overwhelming, but like learning cloud networking seemed very achievable for me. And so it was easy for me to focus on like, let me modernize my on-premise skills into like a cloudy world. And I think that these specialty certs work great for folks that are either trying to cloudify their current skills or learn a net new skill. Like a lot of folks, like it used to be if you wanted to learn like networking or security as an example, you would go get Security Plus, or maybe you would go get a CCNA. But in this world of cloud providers, like you can actually go down that specialty path directly within a cloud ecosystem if that's what benefits you in your career, or if that's what your employer needs. So, all right, let's talk about the associates. So these are the Solution Architect Associate, the Developer Associate, and SysOps Administrator Associate certs are actually known to be relatively similar in terms of the content that they actually hold. So whenever I got my first associate level cert, it was a Solution Architect Associate. And my peers and coworkers all recommended, like, if you're gonna get one of these certs, schedule them all back to back. So I got the first one, and then I scheduled Developer Associate 2 weeks after that, and then SysOps 2 weeks after that, because they're actually like, the differences between these certs are so acute that, like, if you sat the SA Associate exam and the Developer Associate exam, you might not actually know which ones, like, the difference between the two that you took. The Developer Associate exam might focus a little bit more on services like Lambda, where the SysOps Administrator might focus more on like more system administrator, like style of like AWS config and certs that are focused towards that persona. But I would say, like, a lot, like, if you're thinking about doing an associate level certification, it would be nice to align the title of the certification with the roles that you're looking for, right? If you want to be a solution architect, you should probably get the SA certification. If you want to be a systems engineer, the SysOps cert is a great one to look at. And if you're a developer and you just want to learn how to be a developer in the cloud world, I would align to that certification for your learning track. But I would say, as far as expectations go, the skills that you're going to gain from either of these are, like, have a lot of overlap. So if you want to, like, maximize the number of certifications, you could stack them back to back like a lot of folks do. If you want to maximize the, like, benefit for you in your career, I would focus on, like, which of these certs is best aligned with the jobs that I want to pursue or the roles that I want to hold in the future. The one other thing I'll mention on these associate levels is that the SysOps Administrator cert was actually one of the, well, it was previously the only AWS cert that required a hands-on lab, which is really fascinating and also made it a much more challenging cert. They just changed this recently, actually. They removed the lab from the certification. But of the three, like, I have them listed left to right in what would be like the general difficulty from most people's perspectives, right? So if you had to pick one and you wanted to go with, like, the one that's maybe most consumable, the SA Associate might be a good one to start with, okay? All right, now I want to talk about the professional level certifications, and I'm gonna remove our friend Corey Quinn here. This is a little distracting for me anyway. These are like the natural progressions of either the SA, and you know what, I'm going to do some real-time slide editing here just because it'll make more sense to me if I do it this way. If you may have seen diagrams that look kind of like this, where, like, the natural progression from like the SA Associate is, as you might imagine, the SA Professional, whereas the Developer and the SysOps Associate tend to be aligned with the SysOps Professional certification. I think, like, what I learned taking the professional level exams was that, like, the associate level exams I was able to get by with, like, mostly just studying the theory and the curriculum. And I don't know if you need necessarily to have a lot of hands-on experience to be successful at that level with the exams. When you get into the professional level exams, like, it would be very challenging to be successful without having applied knowledge of the AWS platform. So AWS recommends, I want to say it's 3 to 5 years for these. If you look at the 3 to 5 years of hands-on AWS experience for these certifications, I would say, like, 3 years of experience can be the same as 1 year of experience depending on what exactly you're doing. So you have to, like, gauge that as best as you can. Yeah, the takeaway for these professional level certifications, I think, for the session would be like be ready for a fair exam for these, but like one that does require a lot of preparation and practice, particularly on both of these. The practice exams were extremely important because of the, I guess the how verbose the questions were. Like I had to almost go back to like being in high school again, studying for like the ACT or the SAT, of like I can't just know it, and I couldn't just know the curriculum and then show up and pass these. I had to be like in the headspace of really picking out keywords from a question, really synthesizing information quickly. And I'll touch on like what are kind of the gold standards for practice tests here in a second, but that's what I'll say for those. And Pac-Man, get out of the way. The specialty certifications, like I said, these are great for if you want to like jump in and cloudify some on-premise or like more traditional skills that you have and make them like AWS-ified. And if you want to just learn a whole new skill set. I think I see this a lot with the security certification. Like a lot of folks that I know that have never worked in a security role in the past will jump right into that because they just want to understand how cloud security works. These are not meant for folks that are just getting their start. I would say like some previous experience in the domain that the specialty cert is aligned to it's not a hard requirement. There's actually, for any of the AWS certs, there's no requirements for any of them. Like anybody can sign up for any certification. There's no prerequisites. But of all the certs that require like some level of domain expertise before going in, I think these ones, it's incredibly important for these ones. Particularly like, I'll give you my example of the advanced networking certification. Like it's not so hard to learn AWS networking fundamentals. Here's a VPC, here's a direct connect, here's a transit gateway, here's how those services work together. But what is difficult to do is like understand and learn like routing protocols from the ground up in a cloud environment, or like understand some of the fundamentals of like subnetting. And so if you jump right into this, like one of the specialty certs, you're gonna have to understand like foundationals within, or foundational knowledge within that specialty. And so that's just something I would flag as like, as you're assessing the amount of time that it might take you to knock one of these ones out. Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, just another question. Is there anything but BGP that you can interact with in AWS as a customer?
It's a good question. So BGP would be one, and then like IPsec VPNs would be another. VLANs would be, what's that?
That's not routing.
No, but it's certainly networking. Yeah.
No, I'm a network guy, but that's what I'm saying. Like I only see BGP, nothing else.
Yeah, so BGP, what I see is like BGP for peering with AWS, VLANs to plug into your direct connect in the data center. So there are some networking fundamentals that are helpful to know. I think particularly like going back in time and having to like relearn subnetting too was like kind of interesting. I hadn't had to like do a lot of subnetting from my mind for a long time.
It's interesting because for me, actually, the biggest challenge was not technological. AWS make it super easy.
Yeah.
What was a challenge is how much is it going to cost? That was the hardest thing to figure out. How do we make this traffic go from point A to point B while paying the least for it?
Yeah.
And that was hard.
That is difficult, right? Like, yeah, and that's a great call for like, I would say that's a theme, like what you just pointed out is a theme across like all of the exams, is like they really like to ask you like, here's a situation and there's 5 different ways that you can solve this problem, but what's either the cheapest way, the most scalable way. And so that's a great call out of like on the fly figuring out like what's cheaper between building a couple of, like they'll throw in requirements like what's more cost effective, but also like you need to have high availability if a region fails. Like they'll throw in all these weird requirements to really make you think. So, by the way, what is cheaper? A direct connect or a bunch of VPNs? Cool. So that's like my rundown of the certifications at a high level, kind of my experience with them and who they're really fit for. I'm gonna close it out soon, but I'll just focus on like getting the certification is like half the battle. Like you can like at the end of the day, it's just kind of time and discipline of like sitting down, studying, making the time out of your day to day, and like putting yourself in like in a timeline to actually succeed for the exam. It's what you do for a lot of folks. It's what you do with the certification after you get the pass that is really important. So I'll touch a little bit on that here. Oh, actually, before I touch on that, let me tell you about the resources that Amazon uses. So this is actually to me was the most interesting thing, because when I started to work at Amazon and I was knocking out some of my certifications, I actually assumed that like we would have some special access to like training that nobody else had access to, that was like super targeted, and that's not the case at all. In fact, we had this like Airtable where we would all just like vote on what the best resource sources were, and so here this isn't an exhaustive list, but the themes that I picked out from that were these two instructors and then this set of practice exams. And I'll kind of break down where they fit within the exam ecosystem. So Adrian Cantrell, he runs a great website called Cantrell.io, where he really shined internally was a lot of folks that wanted to get a certification that didn't have any previous experience at all, like no technology experience. He does an incredibly good job of starting from the very basics. Like here is, like if we're talking about networking, he goes down to the level of like, this is an IP address, this is a MAC address, here's ARP, here's how that works. A lot of courses out there are very focused on the exam content, and so most of the certifications kind of assume some base level of technical knowledge. Adrian does a really good job of setting the foundation for folks that maybe don't have any prior experience at all. The other one that always came to the top of the list was this individual named Stefan Marique. He runs great courses on Udemy and very targeted at like just the content packed into a course that you need to pass the exam. And so depending on your goals for an exam, or or like where you're at in your career might guide you to either of those. Like I think before you commit to an exam, like spending some amount of time researching what is the best course available can save you weeks or sometimes months in study. And so like it's just a really valuable way to spend your time up front. Everybody that I know that passed an exam recently also uses practice exams, and so there's this great website called Tutorials Dojo as well, where you can purchase practice exams. That's what we all use internally as well. They do a really good job of like basically writing questions that are very similar to the exam and how they're formed. Like they're not the exact exam questions, but like you could, if you're comfortable like processing the questions that come from this particular practice exam vendor, when you sit down to take the exam, it won't feel like you're experiencing an AWS certification question for the first time. Like you'll have a sense for what they feel like, and especially when going back to these like professional and specialty certifications, that can be a huge benefit because they can be quite complicated questions sometimes that are head scratchers. So I have like some honorable mentions on the right-hand side here. For like other courses that come up a lot, but these are the ones that I've personally used and that tended to always rise to the top of that Airtable that we had at Amazon to kind of rate what we found most helpful whenever we were taking certifications.
Real quick,
yeah.
That came in on the chat here. So Quinn asked, with the rise in a need for AI and ML consultants, if you had just the cloud practitioner, could you pivot to the machine learning cert with some knowledge of machine learning without taking the SAA first?
No.
Yeah, I mean, you like there's nothing technically that would stop you from doing that, but it would be very difficult. These specialty certifications, they tend to reference like a lot of other services, and particularly like I haven't taken the machine learning specialty, so I can't speak to that one specifically. But I know that if I tried to take the advanced networking specialty cert without first taking some of the foundational associate level certs, it would have been really difficult, because throughout that exam they're asking you about all of the other services that integrate with that specialty cert. So, Chris, you seem like you have a strong opinion on that one too. What are you thinking?
The ML specialty cert references a lot of stuff. SageMaker, I mean, it talks about all the services that it assumes you know.
Yeah, exactly.
It took the SA associate.
Yeah. So is there anything like policy-wise stopping you from doing that? No. Is it? But you would be banging your head against the study materials a lot, I think, to try to make that happen. So you may as well. I would say get at least one of the associate certifications before you think about pursuing a specialty cert, unless you're already like a domain expert in one of these areas. And even still, I think I would suggest just get the SA associate first, because all of these certifications reference like fundamentals of AWS that you'll want to understand outside of the specialty services that they're focused on. Excuse me. So here's some general tips that I think apply well across all the certifications. And the top one is the one that was most beneficial to me throughout all of them, was to understand the differences between similar services. Like I would say, particularly for the like more generalist certifications, most of the questions are like, and if I'm focusing on the solution architect path, a lot of the expectation is that you can understand like why you would use a certain type of compute or storage solution in a given scenario. And if you don't really understand the differences between like services within a family of service, it can be difficult to do that. So during my studies, I spent a lot of time Googling or like running flashcards of like what's the difference between SQS and SNS. Like that's one that would be very important to know going into just about any of these exams. And I would say like knowing the differences between the services is like equally as valuable as knowing like how the services work themselves, because you can kind of disqualify answers if you understand those fundamental differences. I also suggest, if you're a newer certification taker, like every certification, well, not every certification, but most of the certifications I've been successful with, I tend to schedule the exam and then work backwards from that date. And you can always kick it forward, you know? Usually it's like, as long as you do it within 24 hours of your exam window, you can keep pushing it out. But I think getting, just mentally, like as far as like garnering the discipline you need to sit down and do the work every day, scheduling the certification, kind of drawing a line in the sand, and putting the money down to pay for it, like gives you like a nice human motivator of putting time in the books and like working backwards from that date that you plan to pass the exam. So, all right, so this is the last little bit here. Let's say you went through the process, you scheduled your exam, you were successful, you passed your certification, you got great sleep, you were hydrated on your exam day, and you're certified. So now what do you do? Obviously it depends on your goal. You might have just been getting certified for the love of the game. You just want to know more about technology. You want to grow and like have a path that kind of walks you a framework for learning something new. But a lot of folks that are getting certified are doing it to leverage either get a promotion or leverage it to get a new job. So what I've seen effective for myself and from others is, and this is really hard actually for a lot of folks, is like when you get the certification, like you should be one of those people that is like talking about how they got the certification on social media, and particularly two things, like LinkedIn and Twitter, there's really supportive communities, and when you share that, people get excited for you. Like people want to congratulate you or like or comment and say that's awesome. And a best practice that I've seen work really well is when you're sharing out that you got your certifications, like don't just say, hey, I got the cert, or like reshare the Credly link, but like in the post, like tell people like what helped you, like what resources helped me, like try to add value in the post. Those tend to get a lot more traction online, and I think like kind of broadens the opportunity that post that you make actually connects with somebody that needs somebody like you, or like a recruiter that's looking for somebody with that certification. Obviously, like putting it on your LinkedIn profile is great. what I've seen work really well outside of just putting on LinkedIn is whether you know it or not, through applying to jobs, your resume is like in a million different databases with your old resume in there. And so going through and kind of intentionally re-uploading your resume with the right keywords can be very helpful. Particularly, like, since there's so many AWS certifications, like a lot of people that are looking for candidates, let me try to think of how to say this exactly. Like, the AWS certified solutions architect associate, people will often call that AWS certified solution architect associate, or AWS SAA, or the SA associate certification. There's like 10 different ways that you can say the same thing. And when you're applying for jobs, it's all about kind of getting through like a filter at first so you can connect to a human, right? And so, like, for whatever certification you pursue and you achieve, do a little research to see how it's being referenced in the job descriptions that are looking for that certification, but always include AWS certified as the keyword, because that actually tends to be one of the more common searches. Is like, we just want somebody who's AWS certified. It's not always they're looking for a specific cert. That can happen for sure, but I see a lot of job descriptions that are looking just for somebody who's AWS certified, period. And so having that keyword in your resume is super important for getting through those filters and hopefully allowing recruiters to like find you proactively, which happens. We're lucky to work in a space where like recruiters like reach out to tech people, and like we don't always have to like go outbound. Sometimes jobs come inbound to us, which is like pretty rare within the career landscape, actually. And also make sure your boss knows too. Like, I've gotten certified, and like my boss found out months later that I got certified, and like maybe your boss like wants to help you out, like, because you're putting in that work. Maybe they don't, but I think I've learned that like naturally I don't want to like, I don't tend to like want to talk about my accomplishments publicly, and which seems weird because like I'm in front of you all talking publicly right now, but I just encourage you all to like, if that's you, if you're in that boat and you don't tend to like want to publicize your accomplishments, just like work on like how you can integrate that into like a one-on-one with your boss or something, so they know that you are one of the people on their team that doesn't just like do the 9 to 5, but puts in the extra work to invest in yourself and your career. And I would say that signal of like knowing that you're a worker who puts in the extra work is just as valuable as like the knowledge that you gain from the certification itself. So make sure people know about what you did. And after that, it's just, if you're looking for a new job, just like apply to jobs and wait and see what happens. Like, you can't make, like, it's very rare for you to get a cert and then get a new job opportunity days later or weeks later. It happens in month time frames at minimum usually, and sometimes years. And so just apply and wait, and eventually if you put in the work, you learn the skills, and you know the content, there's enough opportunity out there that you might connect with something. So final thoughts: certs open doors, right? But they don't close the deal. They actually can help you get that first call, but then once you're in the first call, once you're like talking to a hiring manager, the certification itself usually doesn't matter anymore. Now it's about like, can I actually express that knowledge? Can I instill this person with confidence that I will deliver on the role? And so certs can be great for opening those doors, but as you're studying and as you're working on your certifications, just remember the cert itself is cool. It's like fun to say I got the cert, but the knowledge that you're gaining through that process is what's going to pay off once somebody gives you a shot to prove yourself. And that's all I got for you all today. So thank you, Chris, and thank you everybody for coming. Hopefully this was helpful. I guess I will stop sharing now, and if anybody has questions that they didn't ask already, I'll answer those, and if not, that's cool too.